Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. Today we're going to be doing the third and final tutorial for Flashpoint Campaigns Southern Storm from On Target Simulations via Matrix Games. But I did just want to make it known that there are two other videos available to kind of take a ground up approach using this tutorial manual that I'm using to go through this. So basically what this tutorial, this is the advanced and this is the final tutorial. So this adds deployment zones. So talking about how to position your units for the start of the scenario. Also engineering operations such as bridging and clearing obstacles. Indirect fire with both on and off map artillery platforms. So both field guns and rockets. EW or electronic warfare and how that affects your command cycle. Our radio frequency emitters, so your air and ground radar, essentially. How those work, how those impact detection, both for you and for the enemy as well. And then also air superiority and how that affects air support. And finally, NBC hot zones, so nuclear, biological, chemical hot zones, and avoiding them. The game does include, the ability to have, nuclear strikes, chemical weapons, biological weapons, etc. So in this tutorial, tutorial number 3, you will have an area that has been hit by tactical nuclear weapons that you will need to avoid. So this scenario, and let's load it up. So it's scenario number 3, advanced features. We hit proceed. So we're playing the computer opponent. We're playing as the NATO commander. The battle plan for the Warsaw Pact forces is only one: defend the city. So we are actually attacking in this scenario as opposed to the first two where we were on defense. So we'll hit proceed. Now I recommend using the Grognard difficulty setting. So we're not getting any help here. This is full on basic fog of war stuff. You're getting no extra information at all. So this is, obviously a little bit more difficult or significantly more difficult than what we had prior to this. So we'll hit proceed again. So now it's going to load us up. And here's our map. So let me, we'll go. Well, we can just take a quick look at this. So talks about our forces. We've got 15 recon units, 5 helicopters, 11 tanks, 13 armored personnel carriers, 16 headquarters, 8 engineering units, 8 air defense units, 35 self-propelled artillery units, 20 utility units, 8 depot, and 4 air sub-units. And our total force is worth 5,675 victory points. And it says, remember, these assets are all but irreplaceable, which is true. In a Cold War gone hot scenario, the NATO forces would have been significantly outnumbered by the Warsaw Pact. The difference maker, the leveler of the game, so to speak, would have been the qualitative advantage enjoyed by the Western Alliance forces. So I'm going to hit proceed here. I'm going to actually zoom my map out to 60% so that we can see everything. So this is the entire map. This is Schwenningen, which has been hit by tactical nuclear weapons. So that's a hot zone. You can see right here on the pop-up that it's got, a lot of dust, debris, clouds, etc., smoke for, a catch-all word there. And our friendly nuclear warning symbol there as well. So we want to avoid that area. So we're going to talk about that and what that means here in a bit. So as you can see, if you did watch the first 2 tutorials, our units, we've got a beefed up force here or beyond what we had previously. So we'll go into what all of those mean here in our spotlight. Everything's collapsed, but you can see here that we've got our close air support. We've got some engineers now, and these 2 guys are short span bridging units, so we'll talk about that as well. And then we have our self-propelled artillery here inside there and our rocket system off map. So these guys are on map, they're up here, and these guys, the MLRS, they're off map, 5 kilometers to the west, our rocket systems. So taking a look here, if we click our ops button, we can see our briefing again. This is a little handy dandy map that shows kind of what the plan is in general. We got Soviet forces that previously had been trying to capture Bad Dürkheim. They have pulled back to the east. We are going to chase them down and try and push up here into Trossingen, which is kind of covered by their symbol here. We want to avoid Schwenningen because, as I mentioned a moment ago, Schwenningen has been hit by tactical nuclear weapons and is a hot zone. So we're going to come down here. We're going to use our bridging equipment to cross the river at Bad Dürkheim or the general vicinity thereof. And then we're going to push to the northeast, hopefully getting to Trossingen at the northeastern corner here of our map. A little bit better look at our 3 victory locations: Tüningen, Weigheim, and Trossingen. And as I mentioned, we'll be trying to cross the river in the general vicinity of Bad Dürkheim. Our sit rep, this gives us a breakdown of all our units. As I mentioned, we have our, these are all the units pretty much that we had previously in our other tutorials. Our headquarters units, our 8 troops, the mortar troop. We have our self-propelled anti-air gun and the 2 SAM units that we met in tutorial number 2. And then we have a couple of recon units that are new, and we'll talk about those in a moment. These 2 guys right here. Our FARP, our forward arming and replenishment. I forget what FARP stands for. It's something like that. It's basically a depot unit, depot location for our helicopters to use. So we have those again. We have our 2 close air support, our 2 sections of A-10 Warthogs. Then we have our self-propelled artillery. These are the new guys. These are up here. We'll talk about that as well. And then our rockets and our engineers and our bridging units. And we'll get into all of that in a moment. Here's our air support. Now, one of the things that's new that we'll talk about is the fact that we have airspace control is an issue in this particular scenario, and it currently favors the enemy. They have strong air superiority, and that's going to cause issues for us. We are also starting this scenario pre-dawn, 0410 hours here on August 11th of 89. So our visibility is low. We only have 35% illumination. We're in the pre-dawn to dawn time frame. The sun is coming up. So we'll have daylight soon, but we're starting this kind of under cover of pseudo-darkness. But our weather looks good. We don't have any precipitation, it looks like, so that's good. So moving on to intelligence. Here's our threat assessment, which kind of gives us a general rundown up here of what the enemy has, and it's a fairly significant force. Our enemy sit rep. We can see their command cycles here projected out, and we'll talk about that as well. That's the longer time here is a function of the electronic warfare, which is something that's being introduced here in this tutorial. Then we have again our map, and this is the list of what we think they have, which is not overly specific in terms of numbers, but the numbers that they do have here are fairly large. Certainly larger than what we have, so that's going to be an interesting one. Our EW report. So this is our electronic warfare. As I mentioned, our electronic warfare, and you can see it up here in our command cycle chronology. Our command cycle is 36 minutes. Now in tutorial scenarios 1 and 2, it was 15 minutes at start. So that is a complete function of the fact that the Warsaw Pact are employing a lot of electronic warfare against us right now. And you can see, we're the blue, they're the red. Ours is fairly low, theirs is high. And we don't have any projections, but we're going to turn ours up as the scenario goes on. So we can close out of this. Then, we have our personnel logistics report here, so we can get basic details on all our stuff. I'm going to go through the units one by one, but, you have all of this information here. Again, if you didn't watch the first 2 tutorials, I talked about this in the first tutorial mostly, but you have a lot of information in here: fire support, So our fire support assets, both on and off map. So like we have our mortar, we have our artillery that's on map, then we have our area fire, our MLRS rocket artillery rather. They are off map, and our close air support, our friends from the Air Force, they are also off map. Any fire missions, you can look at them once we start, adding fire missions, once we call in airstrikes, etc., or artillery strikes. They will show up in here, and we'll get when it's going to start, when it's going to end, the target, the status, all that stuff. And same thing over here. So a queue of fire support requests. So once we start requesting things, you can always look and see, hey, I called in artillery 20 minutes ago. Is it happening soon? What's going on? You can come in here and look and see what's going on. So now we'll take a look at what we're going to be doing in terms of what our new units are, rather. So, as I mentioned, we have a variety of new units here. So we'll start by looking at our self-propelled artillery. So that's these guys up here. So again, this is all collapsed right now, but if I twist the SPA, self-propelled artillery, open, you can see we have 3 groups and then a forward observer group. So we're going to open up our company A here and look at what we've got. So this is a American self-propelled artillery company. Its subunits, we've got a bunch of M109A2s here. Those are 155 millimeter self-propelled howitzers, and they are obviously a very strong weapon for us, but they are also, and if we crack one of these open and drill down and look, we can see that their armor is actually pretty thin. These aren't tanks, and you shouldn't think of them as tanks. They're artillery guns. You keep them back behind the line, use them to lob some heavy metal at the enemy from a safe distance, basically. You don't want these guys tangling with any enemy units because they're vulnerable. They're lightly armored is something that you have to keep in mind. So we will keep that in mind when we deploy them and when we go through our mission plan and start implementing that mission plan. They have a command vehicle, same thing, lightly armored, unarmed. Mostly it's here just to basically talk with the overall commander and relay those to the fighting vehicles. Relay the orders to the guns so that they can do their job. So we have 3 companies there, A, B, and C. Then we have this forward observer. It's a reconnaissance squad. The vehicle is called a Fist. So here we have the M981A3 Fist. So this unit here, basically, we open him up. Again, not heavily armored at all. And so what his job is to kind of be our forward observer. So he's going to be near the front line. Probably going to stick him in some heavy cover with a good line of sight of where the enemy is so that he can do his job, which is relaying fire missions back to the artillery, back to the howitzers so that they can drop some fire on the enemy. So again, somebody we want to protect, but we need to have him close enough to the front line where he can see the enemy and call in fire. Call in fire, accurate fire in particular on enemy forces. Then we have our MLRS. So this is on map, obviously. We have our units right here. They are on the map. If we twist that closed and open up our MLRS, these guys are off map. So we'll open up our first platoon here of our MLRS. So this is a tracked, self-propelled rocket launcher. So they're used for long-range fire on enemy vehicles. So these are things you'd want to drop on some enemy tanks or infantry fighting vehicles, etc., etc. If we open up our subunits, you can see we have 3 M270s and an M572 command vehicle. They fire the 227 millimeter M26 rocket. So this is an improved conventional munition. So these are like the biggest conventional munitions that the U.S. Army possessed. Not nuclear, but very, very high high potency munitions, can do a lot of damage. A 227 millimeter rocket, that is a big rocket. So we have 3 of those in each platoon. We have 3 platoons of those. And they also have their command vehicle as well. Actually, I didn't actually open one up so we could look at it. So again, these are off map, so we don't really have to worry about their armor and so on, but you can see that they are lightly armored as well. They would be vulnerable to airstrikes, etc. Salvo fire of rockets. It carries 12 improved conventional munitions. And it's got a range of, 1.6 to 32 kilometers. So that's a pretty long reach. That will come in handy as well. So let's look at we looked at the fist already. So let's look at the other observer, our kind of observation vehicles. So down here, we open this guy up. This is our fist that we just looked at actually. So he's the forward observer. He's actually attached to our troop here to do his thing for spotting, right? So it only carries a machine gun, so it can fight against infantry, but anything armored is going to be an issue for this guy. So we want to make sure we keep him hidden. And then we have this other unit, which we didn't talk about, and that's with our main body. And this is a GSR, which is ground search radar rather. So it's used to detect enemy ground units with a range out to 8 kilometers. So this is used as a recon platform, obviously, that can call and fire on detected units. So this is one of our emitters. This one and our self-propelled anti-air gun, this guy up here, this is our other emitter. If we open up our subunit and we pull in one of these Vulcans, you can see sensors. It's got a radar. So it has air search radar, and our GSR. Oh, it did open. Also has our ground search radar, which has a range out to 8 kilometers. As mentioned, it can classify out to 2 kilometers. So we will be using those basically for detection, to detect enemy targets and direct fire upon them. So then we have our engineers, and they are also with our main body. So there's an engineer here and an engineer over here. So if we just open up one of our engineers, so we have a pioneer squad right here. Basically, those are your engineers. So engineers are just infantry, but they are infantry whose mission is basically to do things like blow up bridges, build bridges, clear obstacles, create improved positions, help the regular infantry dig in, and so on and so forth. So they have basic weapons. If we open them up, they have an M6. They have M16s. They have some machine guns, etc. Hand grenades. So they're not. These guys aren't frontline troops. They're not designed to be out there fighting the enemy. They are support troops. So they are not. They will not be asked to deal with tanks or APCs, etc. That's not their gig at all. They have a truck, essentially. But their compadres here with our short span bridging unit. So here's our bridging unit. So this is what we're going to use to build crossings for ourselves to cross these rivers. You can see this unit debuted back in 1946. So it is a tried and true system here. This is obviously not a fighting unit, but it does have pretty decent armor on it. So it can take some damage from the enemy, but again, it doesn't carry any actual weapons or anything. It's not a tank or something. This thing is designed to put down a bridge that the tanks can cross and then pick the bridge up and go forward and create and do another bridge and so on and so forth. So we need to use this guy or these two here to this, first and second bridging, these two guys right here, to get across a river, which is right here. So we're going to use it to bridge this river. and possibly other rivers, depending on, you know, how our line of approach ends up going. It looks like this bridge is up and this bridge is up, so it's mainly going to be used here in the Bad Dorheim area to get us across these initial bridges that are down so that we can drive northeast, as I mentioned before. So that covers all of the units themselves. As I mentioned, the nuclear weapons in the game, their tactical yield about 20 kilotons. They're basically used to destroy enemy units and shape the battlefield, which, as the manual describes, is a way to make areas unfriendly to units, so they have to go around it, which is exactly what's happening in here. The game also has chemical weapons and biological agents as well. Those aren't in this scenario, but they are part of the game. So they have, you know, gas and chemicals, so that, you know, and they have different usages and different requirements for dealing with them and so on and so forth. But, you know, that's not a part of this mission. Just be aware that that is included as part of the game. So the next thing we would do is start our deployment. Now, deployment is something we have not done in our previous tutorial videos. So this time you have units that you need to deploy. So let's go to our second troop here, which is right here. And it's really easy to move your units for deployment. So any of these blue areas are areas that you can move him to deploy him. And all you got to do is click and drag, and that's it. So that's how you deploy your units. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and I'm going to deploy all my units, move them around so that they're in a good spot. To start our scenario, I'll discuss what that means in terms of, you know, what our plan is, what we think the enemy's doing, etc., afterwards. But I'm going to just go ahead and move all my units off camera so that we can jump right into the next stage of talking about this particular scenario. Here's our deployment. So it is now set up for, you know, a reasonably good initial approach to kicking off our scenario, our mission here. The self-propelled artillery at the top and our helicopters were not moved, but I did move everybody else down in this area around Kirchdorf to basically have, you know, a good jumping off point, because we're going to cross the river here. So looking at our plan, we have obviously 3 objectives of increasing value in terms of victory points. We have our 300 victory point here at Tuningen, 700 more up here at Weigheim, and then the big kahuna up at the top here at 2,000 at Trossingen. So you can expect the Soviets to have, you know, a defensive plan, of course. So in general, our main plan is going to be that we'll drop some smoke over here to cover the bridging operation. Obviously, we'll set up our bridges. We'll start bringing our forces over. They're going to be vulnerable because we have to cross the bridge. If the Soviets have any forces on this hill here, they obviously will have good sight lines down to our crossing attempts. Could get hairy. So this is a hairy section here where we're trying to get up and onto the hill. Then once we're off the hill, we're in a valley here to approach Tuningen. Again, going to be vulnerable. We do have the Autobahn that we can utilize, but that could open us up to possible ambush. Again, you know, there's good defensive terrain here. Everything's pretty open. There's not a lot of woods and cover, so that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. And, you know, ultimately, to get us up here, you know, we're going to have to fight the whole way, and then we're going to have to hope we have enough firepower left once we reach there, assuming we do, to dislodge the Soviets and capture that last victory location so that we can actually win our scenario. So that's the basic thought here. So now I'm going to start giving my units their initial orders to start making that happen. So as I mentioned, I will use you know, the mortars, etc., to drop some smoke somewhere in this area right here, which will cover our approach and crossing of the river. And then once we're across the river, we'll update our orders to kind of go up north. I will use my helicopter, my scout, to kind of probably loop around in this area here, just to kind of try and put eyeballs on any Soviet forces that might be there waiting to give us a nasty surprise as we attempt to cross. So I'm going to, again, do that off camera for purposes of keeping the total time down. If you wanted to see how you do, how you give units movement orders and set up their SOPs, their standard operating procedures, kind of the AI that drives each individual unit, I would say watch the first 2 tutorials where I talk about that, and especially the first one where I talk about it. But at this point, I'm going to kind of gloss over these things that were covered in the previous videos, assuming that A, you either know all this already, or B, you've watched those videos and therefore already know it already. You either knew it already on your own, or you knew it already by watching my first 2 videos. So either way. So I'm going to do that right now, and then we'll return and move on with the actual start of the scenario. Deployment is done. So let's take a look. First of all, let's just take a look at what I did for the SOP. And again, this is all following what's laid out in the tutorial manual. So if I just click on this and go to the SOP Manager, Control K. So what we did is we basically took our tactical initiative and turned it from, basically really loose, generous to moderate. Acceptable losses, we went from, minimal to substantial. This is an offensive. We know we're going to get hammered. We're going to push. Standoff range reduced from 3 to 2. Fire discipline, we went to maximum range. As soon as we see an enemy, we want to engage them. We're going to relocate after taking direct fire losses. We are looking for movement, concealment, and avoid the NBC zones, obviously. On minefield contact, we will stop and reduce the minefield. For transports, for those units that transport passengers, they will disembark at 1 hex from the end of the path, and they will support, the carriers will support. So our infantry fighting vehicles will support the dismounted infantry. So what we did is we changed all this. We hit applied to self and all subordinates. This is our ACR headquarters. So that basically was applied to all of my ACR troops here. And that was the only SOP change that was made. So beyond that, then we had to talk about setting up our movement, and you can see the ACR movement is shown here. So we took our basically our recon units here, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Actually, these guys ended up not where they're supposed. Oh, I guess that is where they're supposed to be. So basically, we've got some cover here and here. We're moving these guys up to this cover because we're going to build a bridge here, and we're going to build a bridge here. So they're going to cross those bridges, and then hopefully set up on the ridge line. So basically all these guys, if we just go through here, you'll see they all kind of move into the plane. Here's our tanks, the mortar units, our anti-air gun, the SAM units, and so on and so forth. Our, observer and GSR unit. The engineering. So here's the first bridge. The first bridge is going to be built here to cross this right here. And the second bridge is going to go in here and cross right there. So that is the plan. This lower bridge, Bridge 2, will actually give us quick access to the A864 Autobahn, which in theory we could use to kind of cruise up, but you're very open to ambush. This is a lot of open area here. We also don't know what we've got across the river here on these 2 ridge lines. So what we do to handle that is we do have our self-propelled artillery up here. We're going to take our observer, and we're going to move him up across this ridge and put him here so he'll have some visibility. And again, we can always check our line of sight, right? If we turn line of sight on, line of sight's limited because he's in a city right now. But if we go to his destination hex, hold shift and click, then well, actually I'm neglecting to include the fact that it's dark at the moment. So when he arrives here, it's going to be around 5:30. well, actually, I don't know when he's going to arrive here. But anyway, once he arrives here, dawn is coming. Once the sun is up, from this vantage point on top of the ridge and in cover, because it's a forest here, it's got 65% cover, as you can see. He's going to arrive at 4:51. So once the sun is up, he will be able to get some better visibility out to 10 kilometers, according to our weather report here. And that will give us maybe some visibility onto this ridge here. And the reason we need that is we've put in some fire missions. So the first company here is going to drop smoke all along the river line here to kind of guard and obscure our forces as they move forward. Company B is going to drop high explosive along the ridgeline, the lower ridgeline, the first ridgeline, and Company C will hit the second ridgeline up to the north, just so that we have, some. It's suppression fire, basically. So we're just trying to get the enemy to put their heads down, prevent them from being able to shoot at us while we're moving up into our area to begin. So one thing that the tutorial manager notes here in a designer note, that this is a nearly impossible scenario to win, as all the elements on the battlefield are stacked against you. The objective is to see the effects and learn the features noted in section 4 above. That's the thing I was talking about, with stuff, all the things we're using that are new in this. So our artillery, not having air superiority, the impact of air superiority, the impact of electronic warfare in terms of stretching that command cycle, the NBC effects of having to avoid Schwenningen because of the nuclear weapons that were used there, et cetera, so that basically we know we're going to get our butts kicked here, but we're doing it as an exercise to learn these additional new features. One other thing I did was we do have Scout 1 mapped out to take a quick peek along this ridge line and see what's there. Hopefully he can do that without getting shot out of the sky. That's the risk we're going to have to take here. So we are going to do that. He's going to fly out here and just make a quick circuit and head back here to this area on this ridge line, where we can then give him further orders in the second cycle. So I'm actually going to start the cycle now, and I will probably speed the video up or maybe even just skip it. I'll make that call when I actually do the editing on this, just to kind of keep things moving along, because again, this could get really long and I don't want it to. The purpose of this, because we're going to get our butts kicked, but the purpose of this is just to show us what these added features are like. And then obviously in a different scenario, you could kind of take into account what happened, maybe redo it with a different plan, et cetera, try and figure out a way to kind of mitigate against some of these things that are stacked against you. So I'm going to click start here. And as I said, I'm either going to speed it up so you can see the units moving, or maybe I'll just do a cut and we'll just go right to the 10-minute mark. I'm going to pause it at 4:20, and take a look at our situation at that point. So here we go. So as you can see, we're starting to get our bombardment in. And now our helicopter's moving. Okay, so we've paused here. It's 04:20. So we can see some of what we've discovered here. As you can see, some of our units have started moving. Our observer is on his way to his post here. Our artillery has fired a little bit. You can't really see the HE. I guess you can actually if I zoom in a little more. So we're at max zoom now. You can see the craters here from the heavy artillery that fire. We've cratered here and here. If there were any enemy units there, they would have presumably taken some damage. We still have 25 more minutes before our next orders can be issued. We do have smoke here at the bottom that was dropped by Company A of our self-propelled artillery. The scout has completed probably 70% of his circuit, and he's discovered these obstacles here. So these came up as obstacles that he's discovered, and these will be things that we will have to deal with. As you can see, they're all on roads. So likely minefields, I would suspect, and we'll have to deal with those or go around them, one or the other. And that's the situation currently. As you can see, like I mentioned, these guys have started to move, and our helicopter is doing his thing. Up here, some of the smoke from the nuclear strikes has dissipated, leaving just irradiated hexes here. And so we're going to resume now, and then I will... so our engineers, basically, just to go back to these obstacles, we'll use our engineers to clear those. So they may not be minefields, but there are obstacles that our engineers can be utilized to actually remove those for us. So we're going to go on and move through the rest of these. The rest of this order cycle here. We have 25 more minutes. Again, I'll probably speed through this so that you don't have to sit and watch everything that's happening. And we've reached our next orders phase. It is 0446. So that took, as expected, 36 minutes. And our command cycle is still at 36 minutes. The Soviets, or the Warsaw Pact forces, are actually into their second orders phase execution already. So let's see what we've got here. So you can see that the line of sight, if we click on this guy, his line of sight has improved somewhat. Because, you know, the sun is now up. So it's still going to take a little time before we can actually get the bridging units in place. One is here, one is here. So not a ton going on here. We haven't seen any enemy units. In the manual, it mentions that he's detected, that this guy should have detected a helicopter, but I don't see a helicopter, so I'm assuming it didn't see a helicopter yet. Enemy helicopter. We know they have them. We know they'll be coming in at some point, I'm sure, along with probably some ground attack aircraft as well. But the only thing we're going to do here probably is I forgot to move my squadron HQ up. So I want to do that. And we're going to move him up to, let's see, we'll just do a move deliberate and put him here. And then we'll just put him in hold. So he's going to move up to there just so that he can not get, we don't want to get our units out of command range. So we're going to move him up. We're going to take our scout. And let me turn line of sight off. That's just easier that way. We'll have our scout do another circuit here. So we're going to just basically send him up and then back down along the river to try and see what we got here. So we'll just do a hunt. And then we can plot 6 points. So if we say we want you to go up to so Bad Dorheim, maybe we'll set him here. Then have him go down and maybe do right here, just to the west of our smoke that's being laid, and then have him go back up here, and again back down here, and one more pass to Bad Dorheim, and then back to our initiative spot, and we'll put screen. As you can see, he's going to zip up, down, up, and back. So we'll take 3 passes, see if we can detect anything, trying to just keep an eye on what's going on with the enemy. So this is liable to be a fairly uneventful order cycle as well, but we're going to give it a go. And again, I'll probably end up speeding up skipping ahead to keep you guys from being bored too much by watching this play out. 36 minutes. Okay, so as you can see, we got a weather update here. And the illumination is now 90%. The sun is coming up. So our visibility is getting better, which will help with spotting the enemy, obviously. But we still have 28 minutes to go until this order cycle is over and we get ready for our third cycle. We get our second update. 18 minutes left till our next order cycle, so halfway through. We have full illumination. Day has started. So we're probably also past our inversion for temperature, and thermals will probably be working as well once we get to our next order cycle. Okay, so we are back for order phase number 3. So the main thing that happened on that turn is that our bridges are now underway. So if we, and it looks like that bridge will be done at 5:37, looking at the timestamp on there, and the bridge 2 will be done at 5:41. So both bridging units are working. They're magic. Everybody else is in waiting mode. We still have not detected any enemy air over here with our reconnaissance squad. The helicopter has not completed its circuit. Or it did, and it didn't because I clicked on the place I started from. So let me go and move him. Go to screen. So I'm going to actually send him out over here. Now this is a little bit risky, as it notes in the tutorial manual, because we're going to expose ourselves to any enemy forces in here. This is wide open. So this leg here from 2 to 3 and then to 4, not much cover. So we're going to be exposed. Going to be exposed, but there's no real way to deal with that. Actually, it kind of even wanted me to go a little further out this way. So let's update our waypoints here, and see you can click and drag your waypoints. So it actually wanted to go there. Yeah, so we're going to do this. We'll do that loop and see what we see, and then hope we don't get shot down. So one of the things that it recommends doing at this point is to start moving our artillery units so that we can avoid counter battery fire, because that is obviously something that you have to be aware of. Shoot and scoot, basically. So we want to stop their bombardments and move them. So we're going to move our observation unit, and we're going to move him into Bad Dorheim. Actually, we're going to move him down here. So I'm going to give him a deliberate move, because we need to be a little careful here. So we're going to move deliberate. We'll hit this bridge. Then we'll follow it into Bad Dorheim. And we'll come down here and go into the corner right there. And then once we're there, we'll commit and say screen. Because it can actually swim across the river, so it doesn't need the bridge. The bridge is down. Here's the bridge right here. It's down. But this particular unit, as a reconnaissance unit, has the ability to cross, smaller bodies of water here. So we need to relocate our artillery as well. And we will do just a 1. We're going to do a move hasty, and we're going to move them 1 I screwed that up, sorry. Move them one hex, commit and resupply. That one actually doesn't even need a resupply, so we'll just have him do a hold. So we'll do this guy, we'll say move hasty, move shoot, screwed that up, hang on. Move hasty, move here, commit, resupply. Then we'll have this guy move as well, same thing. We're just going to move one hex, basically. And we'll take this guy and have him move as well. And as you can see, they have a move hasty and then rest and resupply, and their fire orders are done. They're not going to drop anymore. The bombardment is over. We're going to move them to avoid counter battery from the enemy. Okay, now we're going to move our attack helicopters and see if we can put them in a position where they can maybe help support some stuff. So we'll take our 2 here and we'll say deliberate move, and we'll just fly there and then through the gap, and then we're going to go like maybe here and fly up to this area, and then once we're there we'll say commit and screen. And we'll do this and yeah, so shoot, let me move this up. We don't want them to pop up over hills because that makes them a better target. So I'm going to have the first one do the same exact thing. Essentially, I'm going to fly low, and then we'll have him stop right here, hit commit and screen, so that we're trying to stay safe here, right? And now we have to worry about starting to cross our forces over the bridge. So here in this hex, I believe we have so we have this guy and this guy, and we're going to give them a deliberate move across the river. And then we're going to hit we're going to go, we have to go overland because we have obstacles here. And then we're just going to go into Sundhausen. And once we get into Sundhausen, we're going to give them an order of screen. So now both 1 and 2 should be doing something similar, and they are. Although I want them together, so I'm going to move 4 here. I'm going to move 3 here. Because I do want them together. So they're going to be our screening force. And now we need to look at the dashboard for these guys. So what we want to do is have them cross, and it looks like they're going to utilize that one instead of this one. So let's just do this. So now here we can enter a delay. So we know this bridge goes up at 5:37, I believe. So it's saying start at 5:22. So let's say we want to add a 10-minute delay so that they start at 5:32. That way they get there in time after the bridge has been built. And now if we go to 1, 1 can actually go down here and cross the lower bridge. And we'll set his delay as well, because this one goes up at 541. So I'm going to give him like a 15-minute delay. All right, so we're going to do the same thing with the other units, but I'm going to do that off camera so that we're not, taking up a whole lot of time with you guys watching me plot these movements, because this obviously takes up some time. So basically I'm going to move my mortar, one of the SAM units, both my tank units, and the ACR headquarters. I'm going to give those crossing orders as well and have them start to move up as well towards Hakemingen here, up in this area. So basically we have 2 routes of approach. We're going to split our forces. We have the so-called gold route, which is going to be down here along the A864 to Sandhausen. And then we're going to use a quote-unquote red route up here to Hakemingen. Man, I'm having a hard time pronouncing that. But yeah, so we're going to have a northern force and a southern force, essentially. And we'll have basically kind of a pincer approach to Tüningen. So that's the plan, and I'm going to give out my orders, and then we'll pick up again there momentarily. Realized that it would probably be useful to see how engineering units work. So what you need to do here with the engineers is, so here's an engineering unit. It's selected. We're going to give it a move deliberate and just map it out, right? So we're going to have it remove an obstacle. So we're going to cross the bridge, and then we're going to move it up to the obstacle hex, and then hit commit and remove obstacles. And that's it. So that'll do that. And then we do the same with the other engineer. We'll have him cross as well. Well, I guess it'd be easier to just say, I need to do move deliberate first. So we'll go here, then here, and have him go up here and hit commit and remove obstacles. And that made no sense. So let me cancel that. Let's move 1 up here, move 2 here. And he's just crossing. Well, I guess he doesn't actually need bridging to cross and can cross the river themselves. So we'll just do that. He'll move up here, go there, cross the broken bridge area, and come up here and remove that obstacle. So that's how you would do that. And I'm going to finish up the rest of the orders here, and then we'll move on to getting our next orders phase underway. Okay, so our order cycle has increased to 37 minutes here, but we're going to go ahead and hit start, which you can also hit F9. So if I just hit F9 here, like so, we get the message that 37 minutes of game resolution is about to commence. So we need to do it, and let's go. Okay, so we saw our first action in that turn as a Soviet aircraft made an appearance and attacked some of our units here. So if we go back to our ops menu, we can look at our sit rep, and we can see we lost one of our mortar units. We lost one self-propelled artillery there. So that's not good. But all things considered, that was our only loss. I believe that those aircraft were probably en route to maybe do some counter battery on these guys up here or something, maybe. What I do know is that they overflew and obviously did some damage. Our bridges are up, as you can see. Our first and second troops have moved up, as well as 3 and 4. They're up near Hockemingen. And 1 and 2 are on their way to Sundhausen. So we didn't really see much with our scout. And so what we can do now is actually send him out again to try and see if we can spot anything. So he's back here. So if we give him another hunt order, we can send him out, maybe come up just south of Hockemingen, and then move here to the bend in the river, shoot up over here, maybe like right there, then come down here, and then head back this way, and end right here. So we're kind of looping around, seeing if we can find anything. So we're going to do that in screen. So that's a kind of a wacky looking flight path there, but again, we're just trying to find the enemy at this point because we're assuming they're out there somewhere. The only thing we've seen so far is some ground attack aircraft, but we know they have something somewhere. So that was I think those were Su-25s. If we go to the intelligence, we can say what one air unit. We don't even know what it was. And it's looking like we have two kill claims by Company C of our artillery up here, and 3 air claims by our self-propelled anti-air gun, and the 6th ACR troop also claimed some air kills. So as I mentioned, we did have some air activity in that previous round. So this one we might see some stuff go down, I think, because we still haven't had our units all get across. Everybody should be moving now. You can look at the units and see that they have blue. These blue triangles indicate that they're moving. Those are deliberate moves. The bridging units obviously are not moving. The helicopters are not moving, but almost everybody else is moving. So I'm going to hit start now because the only thing I really needed to do was send my scout guy out on a run here. So we're going to do that. Hit start and let this sucker roll. So as you saw there, we had some run-ins with some helicopters. We lost a couple of Abrams. We lost some cavalry scouts. We did shoot down one of their helicopters. We also lost our scout. So that's the way this kind of goes now. Obviously, if we look at our here's our P&L. So, we've got in 7 troop, we have 3 running tanks, 1 is out. In 8, we have 3 running tanks, 1 is out. I think it was 3. No, which one lost? I know one of these guys lost some. Well, I thought they did. Our engineer unit took some damage as well. That was trying to clear the northern highway. So, we took some damage. We're at 92% of our starting force VPs. First and second troop have reached their destination here in Sundhausen. Third and fourth are up here, in their location just outside of Hockhemmingen. Everybody else is still on the move in general. I need to give new orders for these guys because they are no longer moving. They were forced to relocate after taking fire. Same for our 6th troop because they took losses. It looks like 5 is no longer moving either. So I need to move those guys up. The engineers are working on clearing. Our one surviving engineer is working on clearing this here. So right now we did take some hits there. And so we're going to have to get these guys that have stopped. We need to get them moving again. So I think I'm going to actually wrap this up, only because it's going to be a really long one if I were to try to actually do the whole thing. And my plan is to do a campaign or at least a scenario of just regular play to give you an idea of how the game plays and look at some of the, the various things, maybe play as the Warsaw Pact side, et cetera, so that you can get a better look at, everything that the game has to offer. But for now, hopefully you got enough of a sense of what the various units do. I know I didn't really get into a lot of some of the other stuff with, using our off-map artillery assets and everything, because we haven't really bumped up against any ground units yet. But, the game, it takes a while to develop, and I just don't want the video to become overly long. So I just kind of wanted to go through what these extra units are, and then hopefully in a future video I'll go in and we'll play through and you'll get a better idea of how all of these pieces work together in a scenario maybe where I'm not going to get destroyed. Because that's the thing with this particular tutorial. Everything is stacked against you and you get hammered. So while it's good to see what all of this stuff how all this stuff works together, it's a little bit disheartening to get wrecked like you do playing through this one. So for now, I will wrap it up. Hopefully you've got something out of this. I know it was a little bit long. All of these tend to be a little bit long. But thank you as always for watching. I do appreciate it. Please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. I would love the support. But even if you don't, like I said, hopefully you got something out of this, and thank you again for taking the time to check this out. This has been Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe, and until next time, happy gaming.